Hello and welcome. I'm Ellie Richardson and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. In the State of the Union address today, US President Donald Trump reaffirmed his stance on Iran, emphasizing that while he prefers a diplomatic resolution to the ongoing confrontation, he will not allow the country to acquire nuclear weapons. Speaking to Congress, Trump stated that his preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy, but he is certain of one thing, that the US will never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. The president's remarks come amid growing tensions with Iran as Washington continues to push for stronger measures to curb Tehran's nuclear ambitions. Trump's commitment to diplomacy, coupled with his firm stance on preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, highlights the administration's ongoing efforts to navigate this complex international issue. We are now going to be joined by Adrian Calamel, who is a fellow Arabian Peninsula Institute and terrorism scholar, joining us from New York. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. Trump spoke about how in Iran he believes that they are the #1 terror, and my preference is to resolve Iran's nuclear issue via diplomacy. And then he also went to speak on about Operation Midnight Hammer. What do you think? He was speaking about Iran, saying that he is going to sort this out. Do you think he wants to really do it by diplomacy, or is he wanting to scare them by constantly sending out military personnel?
Well, first of all, good morning to Ellie, and it's good to see you again. He's been relatively consistent. I mean, this is the one issue with the Islamic Republic where I think he's shown consistency. Now, there's deliberate ambiguity with what he says, but he will not, he said it right in his speech, he will not let them enrich, he will not let them reprocess. Those are the two. Well, he said you will not let them have the nuclear weapon, but those are the two processes that need to happen for them to possess a nuclear weapon. Now, he did touch on Midnight Hammer. I think he misspoke there, because no, they didn't obliterate the nuclear program, because in reality, they're about 18 months away to 2 years to reconstituting it, and that's going to come back to play in his term. He also, I think, showed that, he's not afraid to use force. He specifically mentioned Qasem Soleimani 2019 when he took him out at Baghdad airport when there was a plot against the U.S. embassy in Baghdad. So, and that was a severe blow to the ambitions of the Islamic Republic, and that was Khamenei's top advisor on the battlefield. So, he's, and he finished it off with, peace through strength, and he highlighted the human rights abuses. On the other side, you have a regime that will not back away from the enrichment and the reprocessing. There's no way they're going to do it. So what you have are two freight trains moving along here, and I really think it's just a matter of when action is taken.
Thank you, Adrian, but don't go too far, as I will join back with you very shortly. We're now going to go to David K. Johnston, who is an author and journalist, also joining us from New York. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. With Iran, like Adrian was just saying to me, he has been very insistent about what he wants. He has said, I want this, and I want this, and I want this. He knows the world was watching this speech and with what he was saying. How do you think Iran is going to take this?
Well, they don't want to be bullied or pushed around by the country that back in the early 50s overthrew their government and saddled them for decades with the vicious rule of the Shah, and they're certainly not happy that the person the Trump administration has been palling around with as a successor to the Ayatollahs is the son of the former dictator. On the other hand, as Adrian pointed out, Trump did not destroy the efforts by the Iranians to enrich. The Ayatollahs will tell you that we're doing this for peaceful purposes and we have not given any religious permission to create a bomb. I don't think many people will buy that and believe it or trust it. And Trump also wants to keep the Iranian government unsure of what he's up to. The one thing will not happen is a land invasion. The military assets Trump has there are more than adequate for fighters, bombers, drones, and missiles to rain down terror from the air. But they don't have the troops, the landing vehicles, or anything else for a ground assault. And Iran has roughly 1 million people who are trained soldiers, not all of them on active duty. So you're not talking about an insignificant military force were Trump foolish enough to try a ground assault. And I do not think there's any chance of that happening.
Thank you, but please don't go too far, as I will be coming back to you very shortly. Some more breaking from Trump's speech. US President Donald Trump has criticised the US Supreme Court after it struck down his global tariffs, calling the decision a blow to America's trade leverage. Trump said the ruling undermines his efforts to protect US industry and pressure trading partners he accuses of unfair practices. The court found that the tariffs exceeded the president's authority under existing law, limiting the use of emergency powers for broad trade action. In response, Trump vowed to pursue alternative legal and policy tools to impose trade penalties if he returns to office. The decision could have far-reaching implications for future US trade policy and executive power. We are now going to go back to Adrian. Thank you, Adrian, for staying with us today on NewsX World. So he said that the Supreme Court ruling in his speech was very unfortunate. And because, as we know, so he got told that he can't do these tariffs anymore by the Supreme Court. He then went and put 10% global tariffs and then 15% global tariffs for the world. And there's been major uproar. How do you think everyone's going to take this from his speech?
Well, I'll be the first to admit I'm not the one that speak on the economy and economics, and but I will say this is a major blow to his agenda. He was using the tariffs in some situations, I think, to shape other policies.
What do you think the Supreme Court's next steps are going to be for this?
Well, there's no other case in front of the court right now, but the American Constitution, and I'm also a law professor, is eminently clear. Congress, not the president, has the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, and imposts. That covers tariffs. Now, the Congress has given some limited authority to presidents in emergency and other circumstances to impose tariffs. I think if those were ever brought before the court, you would expect the original textualists on the court to strike that down as being an improper extension of grant of congressional authority to another branch of the government. Here's the problem scenario. Trump could, at the end of the 150 days, let one day go by if Congress doesn't extend the 15% tariffs, which they will not. And then on the 152nd day, he could reimpose them. And my concern would be that the so-called originalists or textualists on the court would say to Congress, well, you could have written the law to prevent this, but you didn't. So too bad, every 152nd day, the president can reimpose the tariff. That's the kind of mess we've gotten into, and disregard for principles in the Constitution. And this is not good for the world economy. It is not good for trade relations. We are seeing the biggest beneficiary of this has been China, which is busy making deals with Canada, with Australia, our #1 lapdog loyal ally, and with the Europeans. So Donald Trump, through his just utter appalling ignorance about economics, law, or anything else, and seeing the whole world as being about him. And people should know I've known Donald for almost 40 years. I've spent hundreds of hours with him, written 3.5 books about him. That he just believes that anything he says, that's the way it is. He just makes it up, as he did a lot of things in his State of the Union address tonight. This is not good for a stable world. It's not good for Western alliances. I mean, there's nothing good to come out of this.
Thank you, David. Don't go anywhere, as we will be coming back very shortly. From his speech as well, US President Donald Trump has once again claimed credit for stopping 8 wars in his first 10 months in office, including averting a nuclear conflict between India and Pakistan. In his State of the Union address, Trump said he saved Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif from being killed during last year's Operation Sindoor. He also claimed Sharif told him that 35 million people would have died had he not intervened. However, India has repeatedly denied Trump's claims of mediation, stressing that it was direct military talks that led to a ceasefire understanding. Pakistan, meanwhile, had nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize for his alleged diplomatic intervention. We are now being rejoined by Adrian. Thank you, Adrian, for coming back to us for this. So as we heard, he said, in my first 10 months, I ended 8 wars. Pakistan and India would have had a nuclear war, and 35 million people would have died if it was not for my involvement. Now, this is a very, very strong statement by Donald Trump for claiming that Pakistan's leader would have had nuclear bombed on him. As we know, Trump has just met, well, Modi especially, and have formed a relationship. How do you think Pakistan and India are going to take this, and also how everyone else is going to take it, because it's such a strong statement?
Well, that's a great question. I was on the network extensively, and other networks covering Operation Sindoor, and that was never going nuclear. This happens every so often. If you look at Modi's 3 pillars that he set up, it really the whole program, his whole mission was to take out terrorist training camps that were embedded in areas in Pakistan, and one that, we're not going to play defense against this anymore. We are going to hold the state responsible, and we're going to hold those areas responsible, and we are ready to target those. And we're not going to be held to nuclear blackmail anymore. So basically, the way I look at this is that, Trump saved Pakistan's skin. I would have liked to see India do a little bit of more mopping up of the situation in that operation. Yeah, it's I have a very hard time with this. Pakistan's been playing a duplicitous game with the United States for 30-something years now, so going on 3 more. And India has moved away from the non-aligned movement, and really, we should be looking to India as our major ally in the world, not just as far as combating terrorism and regional threats, but as an economic partner. That's who we should be praising. That's who we should be reaching out. Pakistan, we just give a lot of aid to. That's about it. We don't get anything in return. They've been a cutout for decades to supposedly talk to the bad guys, because they're not that bad. Well, no, they are that bad. they are that bad.
Thank you, Adrian. Again, please don't go too far, as I will be joining back with you very shortly. We're now going to go to David. Again, thank you, David, for joining us back here on NewsX World. Now, as I just said, the statement is very strong. It's a very strong statement, and he obviously got a reaction out of it. He said he solved 8 wars, and he's planning to solve a 9th war, which is Russia and Ukraine. And as we know, they've had many peace talks and we still haven't had a clear set plan. So when he goes to talk about Pakistan and India war and says a nuclear bomb and was going to go off, how credible can that be?
Donald just makes things up. He exaggerates things. He makes all sorts of claims. He's not used to having journalists fact check him, because before he became president, nobody did that. And Adrian is exactly right. The skirmishes that went on over Pakistan providing a cover for people who want to go in and terrorize people in the Kashmir is been going on for a long time, and it's continued to go on. There was no threat of a nuclear war here. And the Modi government has said Trump had nothing to do with bringing about an end to this. And by the way, you know, Ellie, it was just a few weeks ago that Donald said he'd solved 10 wars. I mean, if I'm saying it was 6 before that. It's like his claims of great wealth before the current presidency, where he's enriched himself enormously. But he would just make things up. And he does this all the time. He has this self-aggrandizement need that is just extraordinary. So I pay very little attention to that. I think both Pakistan and India would be foolish to put much weight into the just nonsense that Trump spoke tonight. We should be concerned, however, that he got a standing round of applause from Republicans in the House and Senate who were in the House chamber for those remarks, because like many others, they're completely divorced from reality.
Thank you, David. Again, please don't go anywhere, as we'll be back with you very shortly. US President Donald Trump also said the war in Gaza Strip is proceeding at a very low level and is just about there, claiming credit for ending multiple global conflicts since taking office. Speaking during his State of Union address, Trump said he had ended 8 wars, including Israel versus Iran and the conflict in Gaza. He praised his envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, along with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, for their role in negotiating a ceasefire. Trump claimed that under the deal, all hostages, both living and dead, were returned, acknowledging that the final recoveries were difficult. He said Hamas worked with Israel to locate and return remains, calling it a tough but necessary process. We are now going to go back to Adrian. Adrian, thank you for joining us back here. Now, saying that the Israel-Gaza war is just about there and it's nearly ended, is again another very strong statement. But as we know, when reports are coming in, it's nowhere near done. It's still ongoing. Unfortunately, there's still people dying. How do you think everyone's now gonna take this, that he can fix all these wars, but now it doesn't seem credible?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, I have a problem with this 20-point plan, and there's several sticking points. And if you look at the first one is de-radicalization of the Gaza Strip. I don't know if these are supposed to be in order or in sequence, but the most important one, the first phase, was getting all the hostages back. And that was supposed to take 72 hours. That took more like 72 days. Now we're talking about rebuilding Gaza and putting together this board of peace and all these things, but no one wants to answer or address the elephant in the room, is What's going to happen with points 6 through 8, I think it is, Hamas individuals who want safe passage to a neighboring countries can get it. Has to disarm, Hamas has to destroy their tunnels, has to destroy their weapons, has to destroy their launching pads, whatever they may have. They have to de-radicalize or leave. That's the elephant in the room that no one's going to address, and who's going to do it? Who's going to do it?
Exactly.
The IDF.
Thank you, Adrian. Again, please don't go anywhere. We're now being joined by David again. Thank you, David, for staying with us. With this, I know we lightly touched on it just a bit earlier, but saying again that the Gaza-Israel war is just about over, I think were his exact words that he used. Do you think that people suffering during this time are going to appreciate that? Because he takes full responsibility. He's now got the Board of Peace that he says will stop the war in Gaza, but now he's saying he has kind of stopped it. It's all a bit contradicting.
This is, again, just pure nonsense. I mean, let's go back to what happened October 7th. There was an outrageous Hamas attack that prompted the response. It has been completely out of proportion. The IDF has now acknowledged that Hamas Health Ministry was in the right ballpark when they said there have been 70,000 people killed, whereas October 7th killed about 1,200 people. And what Trump and the IDF operating in the way they have really done is ensured decades more of enmity between Palestinians and Arabs generally against Israel and Jewish citizens there. Netanyahu has done quite a good job of making Israel a pariah state. You have every right to defend your country, but this was a meat-axe approach that went way beyond anything that is reasonable and proportionate. And proportionality is a fundamental aspect of international diplomacy and military responses to attacks, and completely gone here. So I don't see any chance of that. Trump, through this sham he calls the Board of Peace, is insisting that there will peaceful reign and there'll be this huge redevelopment and there'll be the Riviera, a new Riviera in Gaza. You notice none of the Palestinians are involved in these discussions. This is all we from the outside will impose this upon you. So this is just nonsense. It will make things just continue as they have now for all of my lifetime since Israel emerged as a state in the modern world, and it's going to continue till, I suspect, after my great-granddaughter is gone.
Thank you, David, for joining here. We will be back with you shortly. US President Donald Trump has called for Congress to pass tough new voter ID laws ahead of the upcoming November midterm elections. Speaking during his State of Union address, Trump pushed for the approval of the Save America Act, which demands proof of citizenship to register and an ID to vote. He claimed that electoral cheating is widespread, although he provided no evidence to support these allegations. Trump urged lawmakers to prioritize this bill, which he believes is vital to prevent illegal voting. He also accused Democrats of opposing voter ID laws because, according to him, they want to cheat. While the bill has widespread public support, it faces opposition in Congress, especially from Senate Democrats. We are just being joined by Adrian again now. Thank you for staying with us, Adrian, for this coverage. With the voter ID laws, we know it's stemmed from the elections when Biden was voted into office, because Trump came out and said how they cheated and how he was meant to win, and made all these accusations, saying that it's false. They're falsified electoral votes. And now he's saying he wants the voter ID for this upcoming midterm election. First of all, how do you think these midterm elections are going to come up for him, as we know that some American citizens have also started doubting how he can do? And second of all, do you think there's going to be much of an uproar for these voter IDs?
Well, I'll first predicate this by saying I'm not a legal expert, but I'm a bit of a reformed political scientist to a certain degree. And you know, there's been voter fraud going on for forever, and you know, it's increasingly become a drumbeat. I think it's been exacerbated by the illegal immigrants that have come into the country. So, you know, I think we should be having an honest conversation with ourselves that people who are citizens of this country should be voting in this country. Like, I don't think I have the right to go vote in Canada under any circumstance, even though I spent 5 years up there. Under no circumstances should I be allowed to vote in a Canadian election. So I don't think it's unreasonable for people to show some form of ID. And I understand most people don't have a driver's license, but there's got to be some form of ID that people have to be able to vote. And I don't think there's got to be some type of methods to make sure that there isn't fraud taking place, but you know, the people that are supposed to be voting can cast their vote, and it's not voter intimidation at the same time, or seen as voter intimidation at the same time. Will this blow back in his face? Possibly. We'll see how it goes. You know, we'll see. Time will tell, I guess. But I think there's been you know, calls on both sides for no voter IDs versus, yeah, everybody should have a voter ID or some type of identification when they go vote. I just have to go in and basically tell them where I live and sign something, and they kind of match it up with a signature. I think that's what they do. Maybe if it's that intensive, that's basically what they do. I'm like, wow, that's pretty shocking. I could have voted for all of my children right here, or whomever, but I of course would never do something like that. So.
Thank you so much to Adrian for joining us here on NewsX World. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you. We're now going to David again. David, with these voter IDs, it was interesting hearing from Adrian about how you go to vote, as I know in the UK you have to present a physical form of ID to prove that you can vote. But the more you go into this and the more he's so adamant that this needs to happen, is it because this is all stemmed from the 2020 elections when Biden came in office? Well,
the Heritage Foundation, that is the right-wing oligarchical ideological marketing organization from which Trump got his battle plan for his second administration. They did a report on this kind of voting by people who are not citizens. And in the period of this century, so since 2000, they found 24 cases. There have been 1 billion ballots cast for president in this century in the 6 elections, and they found 24 votes. That, you know, is infinitesimal. So this is a completely made up issue. And in the 2020 case that Trump keeps insisting that was stolen by the Democrats, he had more than 60 cases brought around the country. And in every single one of them except one, when they were asked to produce proof, they said they didn't have any. When they were asked to prove, is this a voter fraud case? They went, no, it's not. It was all political show. It was not a legal strategy. And there were judges who sanctioned some of the lawyers for bringing frivolous cases. And if a judge tells you your case is frivolous, that's a very serious sanction. That's like a judge telling you that, you know, you're drunk in court. So this is a completely made up issue. Now, this so-called SAFE Act may well harm the Republicans. The SAFE Act would require any woman who got married and took her husband's name to have to re-register to vote. Furthermore, Ellie, under the American Constitution, states and their creatures, counties, towns, etc., they decide the rules of elections. Congress may, if it passes legislation, impose rules on a national level. But that's not been the standard of how things have been done. It's been done by states and counties, and it's one of the reasons you can't steal a presidential election. There's so many people. It would involve the biggest conspiracy the world has ever seen times a million. This is an issue that appeals to people who want to make America white again. They want people who are black, brown, Asian, East Indian, indigenous. They want them out of the country. And that's what this is designed to appeal to. And that's 20% approximately of adult Americans. It's not the majority position in the country. The SAFE Act is not going to get passed. It passed the House, but it's not going to get out of the Senate. That will not happen. There are even Republican senators who will stand against this. So a good example of how Donald gins up issues to make sure that, you aren't focused on how the economy's not getting better under him by almost every measure, how he has failed utterly in his promise that he would solve Gaza and Ukraine in one day, and the Epstein files, where we had major news this week, in fact, yesterday, that the FBI interviewed one of the 13-year-old girls 4 times who says Donald Trump sexually assaulted her. And those documents, only one of them is in the public record. All the others, about 53 pages, they're not in the record that the Trump Justice Department is supposed to, by a law he signed, make public. That's a really significant development in addressing Donald's claims that the Epstein files are a hoax, and the claims of the more than 200 young women who've come forward out of an estimated 1,200 who say that Donald Trump raped or sexually assaulted them.
Thank you so much.
When they were, by the way, like 13 years old, 14 years old.
Thank you so much, David, for joining us here on NewsX World. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you. We have some breaking news for you now. Bill Gates has publicly apologized to staff and the Gates Foundation for his ties to convicted financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. In a town hall meeting, Gates acknowledged his mistakes, saying it was a huge error to spend time with Epstein and to involve foundation executives in meetings with him. He emphasized that he did nothing illicit and saw nothing illicit, while also admitting to 2 affairs Epstein later discovered. Gates reiterated that his interactions with Epstein were purely related to philanthropy, but that he deeply regrets his actions. A spokesperson for the Gates Foundation confirmed that Gates took responsibility for his actions during the meeting. This comes as new documents from the US Department of Justice reveal more details on their meetings. Gates has also denied making any financial payments to Epstein or employing him. In addition to the apology, Gates withdrew from India's AI summit earlier this month, which had been scheduled just hours before his keynote. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.